Late one night in November 1991, the lives of a County Wicklow family changed forever as an 18-year-old girl met her death in a tragic and violent way. She was Gillian Bishop, and her murderer has never fully explained the reasons behind his savagery that night. Gillian Bishop came from a large and well-known Bray family. She had been very popular in the local Loretta school and had many friends in the local area and in the housing estate where she lived, Cork Abbey.
She was a lively, bubbly girl, like loved by everybody. Like she was, like, what do you call it? Everybody. She's very popular.
And
popular
had she done her leaving cert, or where was she at?
She had, yeah. She was working part-time in the RDS.
Okay.
And as a receptionist there, so she was very proud of the fact that she worked in the RDS. Like, you know, it was the name to be.
And how was your relationship? Because, you know, sisters, you know, there can be sibling rivalry. There can be a bit of tetchiness.
Oh, well, there would be. Like, you know, like, majority of the time, it was a very close relationship. Like, we shared the same bedroom and everything like that, you know. But, like, sisters being sisters, there might be a slight bit of jealousy at times, like if she got more attention from mum and dad or, you know, things like that. But generally, it was a good, close relationship.
So you were 16, she was 18.
I was 16, yeah.
What were you in, fifth year? Or?
I was going in fifth year, yeah.
Yeah, in fifth year, right. And the disco was in the Bray Head Hotel.
Yeah.
Was that a big social event in Bray? Was it on every week or...?
No, it would have been just for Halloween. Like, for me, it was a great event because, like, 16, going to kind of a late disco that was going to be over at 2 o'clock in the morning and going to a pub before then, like, was a huge thing to me. Like,
was this your first one?
This would be my first late disco.
Right.
First adult disco, if you want to call it.
So there was negotiations with mum and dad about that?
You'd have to be on your best behaviour and kind of saying, like, it's a once-off kind of thing. Like, you know, please, can I go? So, like...
And I suppose Jill was charged with minding you.
Oh, yeah, like the bigger sister would have been in charge of minding the little sister, kind of. Dad dropped us down, like myself and my cousin, and then we, Ciara, and then we met Jill in Jim Doyle's because she'd already been there, like, you know. And to me, it was kind of like all these people, like, you know, it was kind of way.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I remember coming home that night. I was coming home from a credit union, Newgrow Credit Union up in Finglas, and... I arrived home, and the usual in our house was that they were always looking for the money. They were looking for the famous tenner. Right. They were going to repay. And I didn't hold my breath. She got the tenner, Jill, and off they went. I dropped Karen down, May and I dropped Karen down to the disco. Yeah. And left them and gave them the usual warning, you know, like behave yourselves, be careful, and so forth and so on, you know.
In late 1991, Gillian's adult life was only beginning. She had just got a new job as a telephonist at the RDS and had begun to go out a lot more with her friends, but her parents enforced the rules and she was generally back at home before 2 a.m. At about 9 o'clock on the 31st of October, Gillian left her home with her friend Moelisa Casey. Gillian's younger sister, Karen, was also going out that night, and the parents were more concerned for her welfare. Gillian and her friend stayed at Jim Doyle's until about 11:30. On leaving the pub, they went to a nightclub called Alternative, which was in the Bray Head Hotel.
They went out to the disco and Karen came home, and Jill was to follow. And there was no sign of her, and we were getting very concerned. And then we were saying, well, maybe she met up with her pals and maybe they would have gone home. All the things, you don't think of the worst, you know, you're always thinking of the excuses, but we knew there was something wrong. And I would have to say this, that around 3:30 we were pacing the boards upstairs in the bedroom, like, where is she, where is she? And May says, she's murdered. And I said, don't be so silly, how could she be murdered? She says, I'm telling you, she's murdered, she'd be home. And believe it or believe it not, that was around the time that she was murdered.
At 5 a.m, Gillian's father, Ciaran Bishop, having stayed awake most of the night, got out of bed, got dressed, and went down to the seafront, where he knew she had been the previous night. He had no success in finding her and went home. He started ringing her friends and anywhere he thought she could be. He called to the Garda station in Bray at 9 a.m. He later rang the RDS, where she was due to start work at 1:30 p.m. She had not shown up for work, so he immediately rang the Gardaí in Shankill and reported her missing.
Gardaí carried out some searches on the seafront because we had known she was down there at the disco. But it wasn't until we got a telephone call to the Garda station at 5 to 3 from a young person who said that there was a body of a female lying in the back of a private house on the seafront in Bray.
At about 5 to 3, Neil Power, a boy who lived on Strand Road, Bray, had been playing in his backyard with two friends. He jumped over the wall into the next-door house. When he looked towards the house, he spotted a young woman's body lying on her back in the yard. He ran back to his house and called the Gardaí at Bray and told them what he had seen.
A detective unit was sent down to the scene. I went down myself, viewed the body, and I did see the body of a female there, lying face upwards. Her face was very badly bruised. There was a lot of blood on the back of her head. She seemed to have been badly beaten.
I went down to the seafront, a home beside Jim Doyle's pub, and there was great activity there. There was a lot of Garda activity, and I got out of my car, and I was going over, and a policeman put me into the squad car and just sat me into the squad car and told me to sit there, you know. And my brothers were out, and sisters, you could imagine the scene. And my eldest brother, Charlie, he identified Jill.
Gillian Bishop was pronounced dead at 3:45 p.m.
The post-mortem was carried out that night in St. Columkille's Hospital in Loughnastown and revealed that she had died from asphyxia due to a pound coin being inserted into her throat. She had head injuries, but it was believed they did not actually, that they were not the cause of her death. It was a pound coin.
The nature of Gillian's death and the violence indicated by the discovery of the pound coin ensured that the story was front-page news the next day.
It got a lot of press attention. I think the public were very shocked by this, particularly in Bray. I think what shocked people mostly, particularly, was that Gillian was a young girl who had her life ahead of her. She was a very popular girl. She had many friends. She had just secured a job for herself, working as a telephonist, and she was known by quite a wide circle of people. But I think more than that, everybody in Bray would know somebody like Gillian, you know, a young girl starting out, young people going to discos. And I think in that way it touched everybody in Bray that somebody they know had been murdered like this, simply doing an ordinary, everyday thing that thousands of people do.
The Garda investigation involved talking to anyone who had been out and about in Bray the previous evening, and also involved extensive door-to-door inquiries.
Initial inquiries were carried out, and a number of witnesses came forward saying that Jill had been in the disco in Bray Head the previous night. She had been in the company of a local man whom she had met there for the first time, and that indeed shortly after 2 a.m. that morning she had left the disco with him.
Gillian had met this young man. He seemed to be perfectly fine, and they had been getting on well together on the night, so they left together. And even as they were leaving, a friend of Gillian's saw her, and he called out to her and he said, "Are you okay, Gillian?" And she replied, I'm grand.
Further on, from the Bray Head, she was spotted at a gate near where her body was found. And a person actually spoke to her and called her name.
And she was seen hugging the man. As the person last seen with Jill, this man now became the Gardaí's prime suspect. In a small town like Bray, his identity was not difficult to establish.
We had actually identified who was with Jill that night. So it was not that we knew who had actually murdered Jill at this stage, you know, but we did direct the guards down to this particular house down in the seafront.
The Gardaí had established through their own inquiries who the man at the disco with Jill was.
This man was identified as Michael Dean McLaughlin. He was interviewed at his flat by the Gardaí. He agreed to come to Bray Garda station to assist the Gardaí with the inquiries into the investigation as a witness.
Actually, while I was in the police car, this Dean McLaughlin was brought up by the guards. Now at that stage, you know, he was only, you know, he would have been brought in as indeed other people were brought in, but I actually saw him that day.
He denied having been involved in any altercation with Gillian Bishop or assaulting her in any way, but he did say that while walking her home, he was jumped upon by 3 or 4 people and assaulted near Dawson's Amusements. This, he said, was the reason that he had some marks on his face and some marks on his body. And we interviewed people all along that were there the night before about this assault, if anybody had seen it. Nobody that we interviewed that had been at the disco had seen any assault take place or had seen anybody in around Dawson's Amusements. It was decided then that from all the information we had that we would arrest this person.
McLaughlin was arrested and taken to Bray Garda station, where he was again interviewed by Gardaí.
During the course of one of these interviews, he said to the interviewing Gardaí that what he had been telling them up to now was not, in fact, the truth, and that he now wished to tell the truth. During the course of this interview, he then went on to outline the series of events that had happened between himself and Jill leading to her murder. He stated that they had walked down the seafront together from the disco, that an argument had developed between them, and that he had pushed Jill and that she had hit her head on the pier of a gate.
At this point, McLaughlin claimed he had panicked.
She was unconscious for about 15 to 20 minutes, and when she finally came around again, he claimed that she scratched him in the face. She was angry. Now, I think anybody could imagine she was angry. So again, there was physical violence. He attacked her, and she went unconscious again. Now, at this point, he dragged her body around the back of a house close to the seafront, and then behind this house, out of the public view, this is where the final act of the tragedy occurred. When Gillian woke up again, he assaulted her again, and it was quite a vicious assault. And he then found, apparently, he says, he just found a £1 coin lying on the ground, and he claims that he took this coin and pushed it down Gillian's throat because he wanted to stop her screaming. And after that, she went quiet again, and he stayed at the scene for a short while, and then he left, but he didn't call for help, he didn't call for an ambulance, and that was the end of the attack.
When we went to his flat, he had actually washed the clothes he was wearing the night before. He had actually gone up to town that morning to a local supermarket and bought washing powder. He steeped the clothes, so there was no evidence there as such. Apart from his own admission, we had some forensic, all right, and some blood samples that we got, tiny blood samples from his trousers, which matched Gillian Bishop's blood.
The £1 coin, I suppose, is the aspect of the case which grabbed the most headlines. People wondered where this idea came from, and there were all kinds of suggestions and thoughts, you know, had he got the idea from a book or from a video? At the end of the case, his own barrister, Mr. Gregory Murphy, speculated that he might have got the idea from watching a violent video film, but in his own evidence, McLaughlin simply said that when he was struggling with Gillian, he had happened to see the coin on the ground, and he picked it up and shoved it down her throat because he wanted to keep her quiet.
He was like any other young man, well dressed, well groomed, good looking. No sense of, no letter on his forehead to say, "I am evil." You don't know who you are. You don't know who you're with, because they're not identified. You can be any one of the population. That is frightening. You know, that I wanted to see somebody that was evil, you know, that I could say, yeah, he was evil. You know, that you could say, you know, and then make the excuse that, you know, yes, he was evil. That's, you know, I can understand that he would do such a thing, but that's not the case.
It was a very vicious attack that he launched on Gillian. Dr. Harbison said that she had cuts and bruises and abrasions on every part of her body. He discovered 4 footprints on her torso and a 5th footprint on her, I should say boot prints, on her left breast. There were signs that there was marks around her neck where there was an attack, and then of course there was the pound coin. So this is a very vicious attack, and I think the nature of that attack must have swayed the jury between the verdict of manslaughter and the verdict of murder, which they brought in.
In the Central Criminal Court in Dublin, 23-year-old Michael Dean McLaughlin received a life sentence for Jill's murder.
Was it victory? We were happy with the verdict. But what did it do? It was still an emptiness. We came out of the court with a victory. Didn't come out with our daughter.
Michael Dean McLaughlin is currently in Arbor Hill Prison.
He has to look for forgiveness from somewhere else. You ask me, could I forgive him? Or would I forgive him? I have a very simple answer to that. It's not to me you must look to for forgiveness, because he did nothing on me per se. He didn't injure me physically. He murdered my daughter. The forgiveness that he has to get is from either my daughter, who he can't get it from, or from a higher being, whether it's God or whoever. But he can't get it from me, because I'm not prepared, because I can't give that. I can't speak, because if you were asking me, should I forgive him? The answer I would give back to you very quickly is for killing my daughter, for taking my daughter's life at 18 years of age. Would you forgive?
It was a very emotional scene, obviously, at the funeral. Many of Gillian's friends and relatives, family were there. The Bishop family would be well-known family in Bray, and there was a full turnout of girls from Gillian's school, Loretto Convent. The family are closely involved in football. There would have been a big turnout from there. A huge outpouring of emotion. Many tributes paid to Gillian. She was described as a girl who always had a smile on her face, always had a good word for people, always very friendly, always ready to chat and talk. There have been a number of murders in Bray over the years, but what was unusual about this case, clearly, initially what grabbed the headlines was the fact that a pound coin had been thrust down Gillian's throat. But I think on an emotional level, Gillian's murder, I think, touched a very wide part of the community, because I think everybody knew a girl like Gillian, and were shocked that this could happen to somebody who was just going out, enjoying themselves on a Friday night like any other youngster would do.
We started this the Jill program, and we got volunteers from around the country, and it was funded by Victim Support, and it's currently working insofar as that families that are bereaving, parents that are bereaving the loss of their child through murder. They can make contact with Victim Support. They can talk to anyone of the support group. I was very much involved in it, and one of the things that I found that any of the people that I would have dealt with, that basically all they want to do is to talk to you. Talk to you because they can't talk to their families. Talk to you about something that is very pertinent to them, but if they relate it to the family, it might cause, consternation or upset or whatever, I left it with the volunteers, with a training program in place. I felt it was time to move away from that, because sometimes if you get totally involved, that it becomes you and not the service. I was quite proud that that service commemorates Jill's memory.
Despite his involvement and his work with victim support, the death of his daughter has left an indelible scar on Ciaran Bishop.
McLaughlin was released 3 weeks ago after 26 years. He was sentenced to life and he served 26 years. And we'll talk about how that has affected you. Suffers terribly. Like I read somewhere there that you told Lisa Marie that she hasn't slept in 26 years. That's...
No, she hasn't. She hasn't had a full night's sleep since the day it happened. You know, because as Mum always says, like, because she carried her for 9 months, she always feels she has that extra bond with her because she carried her daughter for 9 months, like, you know, so there's always... And then, like, to see your daughter go out to a disco full of joys of spring, like, you know, and she had a very hearty laugh, which Mum always used to give out about, sort of going like, would you stop? I can hear you from the top of the road, like, you know, she was coming down it, like, you know, and then to say, well, that's the last time I saw my daughter, like, you know, and then, like, when we're going to the funeral, it's a coffin you're seeing, you're kind of going like, is that my sister, is that my daughter? Like, you know, it's kind of, you know, it's just, it's hard for her to come to, or any parent to come to terms with it, like, you know.
And was there fear, I suppose, when the person who perpetrates this terrible crime is behind bars, that there's a safety in that? Yeah,
because, you know, like, you're safe. He can't get you. Like, you know where he is, like, you know, and you don't have to be kind of looking over your shoulder, kind of like, you know, is he here or where is he? Like, you know, it's kind of, not that you would think much about him because he doesn't deserve to be thought about, but, like, you know, it's kind of, you know, he's there and that's it. You don't have to worry. You know, you have that safety.
And the prison services then, are they in sort of sporadic contact with you?
Well, they are. Like, there was a guy there, Walter, and he would keep me informed, you know, by text. That was it, you know. And the only thing I would say about that, you know, about McLaughlin, that, you know, that I think about him, and I don't know whether you would like me saying this, but the only time I would ever think of him would be when I hear of a murder or a death or a suicide in the prison service or in Mountjoy or wherever he'd be, and I'd be waiting for the name McLaughlin to come out that he's committed suicide or whatever. And if I don't hear that name, I just continue on. Other than that, I don't think of him.
I only met you today, but I think you're a religious man, are you? Are you?
Well, that might be.
No, I'm not. Do tell me. You mentioned you were at a retreat down in Templemore.
Well, we were at a retreat down in Templemore, and we were talking about counsellors and things like that.
But it was a religious retreat, was it? No,
religious.
The reason I bring it up is, you know, and I think it's easy for people to throw around forgiveness. Mm-hmm. You know, people throw that word around, and it's a lot more difficult when you're in the situation that you were in, like, you know, walk a mile in my shoes. Mm-hmm. So was forgiveness ever on your radar?
Never, because when you have somebody special in your life, you know, never, because that was evil, you know, that it was just evil. And how could you forgive somebody, you know, that has committed such a heinous crime? And destroyed, not alone May's life, my wife, destroyed us, destroyed Karen, destroyed John, and deprived our grandchildren of an aunt. Yeah. Deprived May of being able to see her daughter walk down the aisle, have children, and the same with Karen. There's more to just, you know, that one act.
And he's out now, and you're still living.
Yeah, our life sentence continues where he has a new life now. Like, he's done his time, like, you know, so he'd be 48, 49 now, so he's still a young man, so, like, he has his whole life ahead of him, where, like, our life consists of, like, well, now that he's out, it's reliving the whole thing again, like, it's fear all over again, and part of it, because we don't know what he looks like, you know, so he could be sitting beside us on a bus or somewhere like that, and we haven't got a clue of what the perpetrator looks like, but yet he would know what we look like. You know, so it's kind of all, you know, let's protect the perpetrator and let just the victims continue on as they are. Like, there's nothing, like, nobody.
You called, and I read an article, an interview you did for one of the papers, that you wanted his photograph to be published. And that's against the law because he has right to privacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe he's restricted in that he can't go out to Bray.
Yeah, but again, you know, like, to be realistic about this, you know, and it's good that it's there, you know, that he can't visit.
So he's
Bray.
on probation for the rest of his life, is he?
Oh yeah, he still carries the life sentence, you know. Right. But I mean, who's going to stop him coming into Bray? Who's going to stop him? Who knows him in Bray? I mean, 26 years on, there's a whole new regime of Gardaí in Bray. We don't even, like, I would know, you know, like, I would just know him. But no one else knows him. So it's something that might give you comfort that if you are walking down that down Main Street, and that if we're not talking about carrying the photograph in the handbag or in the wallet or anything like that, just to have that picture, to say, yes, I'll now that I see that picture, I will remember that picture. And if I see that guy, well, you report that to the police.
And have you asked anybody for his picture?
Well, in course of contact with the prison services, with the prison liaison officer, Walter, Dad would have asked, but he got no reply. And then last week we got a phone call from Bray Gardaí. We were assigned a Garda liaison officer from Bray that only actually called up to the house twice. And he said to Dad that he lost Dad's number, but there again, he could find the number on that day. And then he says to Dad, like, well, if you see him in Bray, ring me. Right. Like, you know, and we're sort of going, like, this is our whole thing.
They can't release his photograph. I think there's data protection laws around that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How have you been since he's been released? So it's 3 weeks now.
Well, like, it's the fear factor all over again. Like, you know, and of not knowing what he looks like, you know, like, because you don't want to be looking at people going down the town and kind of going, oh, that looks like him, and then kind of labelling innocent young men going down the town kind of thing, like, you know. So it's just, you know, and then you're kind of going, like, it might sound silly to people, like, you know, but you're kind of going, like, will he reoffend? Will he come after me again because I helped in the process of getting him sentenced? Like, you know, because nobody can say that he's not going to reoffend. Like, nobody can just say that. So it's just a whole fear factor all over again. It's just reliving the nightmare that we've gone through.
And from your work with victim advocacy, what happens normally? How do people deal with this?
Well, again, before I got involved with victim support and families of murder victims, there was nothing out there, absolutely nothing out there. And I mean, when I sought help, there was nothing there for us. You know, May and I, and the kids, we were just left stranded. We had to paddle our own canoe, basically, you know. But I'd say with victim support, or the new group now, that they would want to have that as part and parcel of the package, that in relation to a guy that's been released for such a heinous crime, you know.
I suppose people would say he served his time.
Yeah, but what is time?
Yeah.
What is time? What has he? So, you know, we put a value now. Like, well, he served 20 years. That's fine. You know, he's better. Is he better? Better for what? What about us?
Yeah.
We have never got any support from any organisation, from government organisation, to support my family. I got nothing. May's got into bad health since this happened. We get absolutely nothing, and somebody somewhere in the Department of Justice says that's another job well done. You know, try to tell you that, you know, you must move on and you must do this and you must do that. We have moved on and we have made major advancements, but you can't make up for. There is such a thing as a broken heart. And the only way that you can, as I say, the only way that we can continue is the strength and the love that we had from Jill in those 18 years. There were 18 years of compacted into just
a good child, loving child, and that's what has kept us together.